Butter was supposed to be the safest thing in the fridge, the golden spread we trusted to make a meal whole. But what if I told you that tens of thousands of pounds of America's butter have just been yanked off shelves by the FDA? 64,000 pounds gone in one sweep because hidden dangers slipped past the very safeguards meant to protect us. If something as basic as butter can turn toxic, then what about everything else sitting in our kitchens right now? How many older Americans will unknowingly spread a slice of risk across their toast tomorrow morning? How many families living paycheck to paycheck will shrug it off, telling themselves, just one more meal, until tragedy strikes? Behind the shiny wrappers and smiling ads lies a system where recalls explode like landmines, and consumers are left to gamble with their health. This is the Downturn Report, where the truth gets personal. Tonight we uncover the 6 butter brands under fire and expose why trust in our most ordinary foods is collapsing. Number 1. Bungee butter. Butter has always been sold to us as the safest pleasure on the plate, a creamy companion that makes even the cheapest biscuit taste like Sunday comfort. That is exactly what Bungee North America promised when they pushed their so-called European-style butter blend into our grocery aisles. An illusion of foreign luxury at a price working families and retirees on fixed incomes could still afford. But the curtain ripped away this July when the FDA announced a recall of more than 64,000 pounds under a Class 2 warning, all because the product failed to disclose the most basic ingredient: milk. Yes, milk, the very essence of butter itself. It almost sounds like the start of a bad late-night comedy sketch, except the punchline is an ambulance ride for an unsuspecting grandparent with an allergy, their throat closing while breakfast still sits half-eaten on the table. What makes this fiasco sting sharper than a paper cut dipped in lemon juice is how far the contamination spread before anyone raised a red flag. This was not butter forgotten in a dusty warehouse. It had already rolled through 12 U.S. distribution centers and was even shipped abroad to the Dominican Republic, hidden in neat white boxes like silent landmines waiting for the unlucky. The FDA spelled it out clearly. This butter carried risks of temporary or medically reversible consequences, which is bureaucratic jargon for a trip to the ER if your body can't take the hit. For older Americans, the very demographic most vulnerable to shock, this wasn't a safety notice, it was a roulette wheel spun on the grocery shelf. And the cruelest irony, many bought it not out of choice, but because it was the cheapest option staring back from the cooler. Where was the outrage? A quick press note here, a sterile recall notice there, and silence everywhere else. No booming announcements on store speakers, no apology campaigns plastered. Across TV, not even a corporate promise to double-check the basics. Bungee's reaction was the corporate version of a shoulder shrug. Our mistake. Move along. As if customers' lives were just tiny print on a balance sheet, easier to ignore than to repair. Meanwhile, millions of households already balancing medical bills and grocery coupons like circus jugglers are left to wonder if the butter in their fridge is another ticking bomb. And this is the deeper betrayal. We know the food system is cracked, yet we still feel forced to buy what's cheap and available. How many of us have muttered to ourselves, "It's fine, one more meal won't hurt," while sliding a suspect item into the cart? We tell ourselves regulators wouldn't possibly let something dangerous hit the shelves, yet this recall proves otherwise. The watchdogs only barked after tens of thousands of pounds slipped through, making the entire system feel like a smoke alarm wired to your neighbor's house. Sure, it might go off eventually, but not in time to save you. So what happens next? If Bungee can blunder on something as obvious as allergen labeling, what's waiting around the corner? Pesticide traces in the churn? Residues from antibiotics in the feed cows? Or worse, foreign contaminants slipping in because inspectors are overworked and underfunded? Each failure like this is another crack in the dam of public trust. And once it bursts, who will carry the flood? Should we expect bigger scandals, maybe even a crisis that makes this recall look like child's play? And yet, while Bungee stays silent, others are proving trust isn't impossible. Tillamook, a farmer-owned cooperative in Oregon, continues to keep sourcing and labeling transparent, while Minerva Dairy, America's oldest family-run creamery, offers butter made in small batches that you can actually trace back to its origin. Some households are even turning back to the basics, churning cream into butter at home with nothing but a mixer. No fine print, no risk of hidden allergens, just control in your own hands. Choosing these options isn't only about taste, it's a quiet rebellion against a food chain that treats us like statistics. So here's the question no one can dodge. How many more recalls will it take before families stop shrugging and start demanding answers? Will the next silent tragedy strike your household or your neighbors? And why on earth should anyone have to gamble with butter of all things? Tell me, do you think Bungie's silence is hiding bigger storms still brewing, or are you willing to trust that golden block in your fridge? Number 2. Cabot butter. Most people buy butter with the kind of blind faith we reserve for the sunrise. It's always there, always safe, always simple. But March of 2025 tore that comfort away when Cabot Creamery's extra creamy premium butter, the kind packed in sleek 8-ounce sea-salted sticks, was suddenly dragged into a food safety scandal. Inspectors discovered elevated levels of coliform bacteria, the kind of microscopic intruder that doesn't usually hurt you directly, but screams something worse: sloppy hygiene, maybe even fecal contamination. The FDA moved quickly, slapping a Class 3 recall on 1,701 pounds of butter, nearly 189 cases, spanning 7 states from Vermont to Arkansas. And here's the part that makes your stomach twist. 17 packages actually made it into consumers' homes in Vermont. 17 little sticks of comfort turned into time bombs on kitchen counters. Why does this cut deeper than just another recall headline? Because butter isn't supposed to be dangerous. It's the wholesome face of home cooking, the thing you trust without reading the fine print. Finding bacteria in butter is like finding muddy footprints across your freshly mopped floor. You can't help but picture where they came from. For retirees and low-income families, butter is often one of the few indulgences that feels affordable, a way to stretch meager meals into something warm and filling. When that simple comfort suddenly carries the shadow of contamination, it feels like a gut punch. How many seniors spread that butter onto toast for breakfast without realizing they were rolling the dice? Cabot's reaction came wrapped in polite corporate calm. They claimed they recovered 99.5% of the batch, leaving only about 8.5 pounds in customers' hands. They apologized and assured the public of their commitment to safety. But words like that feel hollow when you're the one wondering if your butter belongs in the fridge or the trash. It's like someone quietly changing your house locks while telling you not to worry. Sure, maybe you're safe, but you can't shake the unease. The deeper sting is that Cabot isn't some mom-and-pop farm fumbling under pressure. It's part of Agrimark, a billion-dollar dairy cooperative. With all that money and infrastructure, how did they let a batch of butter slip out carrying bacterial red flags? It's like buying a new car only to discover the tires are already flat, and this isn't Cabot's first stumble. Back in 2005, an ammonia spill killed thousands of fish, forcing them into fines and mitigation payments. By 2009, they were caught falsely advertising their milk as RBST-free. The pattern is clear, a brand that looks wholesome on the surface, yet keeps tripping on basics. Think about how this plays out in real kitchens. An elderly woman picking up Cabot butter isn't shopping for germs, she's shopping for familiarity, for a taste that feels like home. She doesn't need a lecture on microbiology, she just needs to know her toast won't betray her. But when trust fractures, even the smoothest butter feels like a threat. And who among us reads FDA recall sheets before shopping? Most of us grab what's familiar. And affordable because the system told us we could trust it. The future is where this gets truly unsettling. Will Cabot tighten inspections, publish independent audits, and prove they've changed? Or will they quietly sweep this away, slap on a problem-solved sticker, and let the same cracks widen until something worse slips through? If bacteria sneaked in once, what stops pesticides, antibiotic residues, or foreign contaminants from joining the party next time? When does butter, the very symbol of American kitchens, become a roulette wheel no one wanted to spin? For those who can't stomach the gamble, there are options that don't feel like rolling dice. Organic Valley, with its stronger quality controls and farmer-owned structure, has kept trust more intact. Some co-ops even allow visits, letting buyers see where their food comes from. Or go back to basics. Churn your own butter at home. It's as old as hunger itself, and nearly as safe as a grandmother's hug, with nothing hiding inside but cream and maybe the family cat trying to steal a lick. So ask yourself, if even butter is slipping under safety's radar, what does that say about the rest of the food chain? Do we still control what we eat, or are we just the guinea pigs for corporate convenience? Would you keep trusting Cabot's calm apologies, or does this recall sound more like a warning shot across the bow of consumer trust? And perhaps the hardest question of all, how many more unexpected recalls will we tolerate before we decide enough is enough? Number 3. Land O'Lakes. If butter brands were high school characters, Land O'Lakes would be the polished prom queen, smiling wide in glossy yearbook photos, patriotic backdrop shimmering behind her, adored for decades without anyone daring to question what was hiding behind that perfect smile. But pull back the shiny wrapping and the illusion cracks. The truth is, Land O'Lakes has carried more baggage than it admits. Contamination scares, worker exploitation, environmental damage, and political bedfellowships that turn a tub of butter into something more like a Trojan horse, sneaking problems right into your fridge. One of the ugliest stains comes in the form of listeria, a bacteria that doesn't just whisper danger, but screams it. Land O'Lakes-linked facilities have faced multiple recalls over the years, with thousands of pounds of dairy products pulled back after testing flagged contamination risks. And listeria is not the kind of germ you laugh off. It loves cold places like refrigerators, making butter and cheese perfect hiding spots. For younger, healthier people, it might mean cramps or nausea. But for seniors, immunocompromised Americans, or pregnant women, it can mean miscarriage, hospitalization, or death. The CDC itself reports roughly 260 listeria-related deaths in the US every year. Imagine a retiree living alone, spreading Land O'Lakes on toast, never realizing that her safe choice could be the very reason she collapses before she can call for help. But the betrayals don't stop at bacteria. Land O'Lakes has been caught playing both sides of the fence, marketing itself as a farmer-owned co-op while funneling millions into lobbying campaigns that critics say suffocate smaller farmers and favor agribusiness giants. Former CEO Chris Policinski even sat on Monsanto's board, sparking outrage among consumers who thought they were buying into wholesome, honest dairy. Instead, they were unknowingly supporting the same machinery that props up industrial farming and corporate manipulation. For the older working class, many of whom still believe made in America should mean trustworthy and safe, this discovery lands like a cruel joke. Your butter dollar funding the very system that's squeezing family farms out of existence. And then there's the environment, another victim of Land O'Lakes' sprawl. Reports going back years link the co-op's supply chain to massive factory farms whose runoff poisons rivers and groundwater. In Minnesota and Wisconsin, nitrogen runoff tied to dairy operations seeped into wells, raising cancer risks for rural families. Imagine pouring a glass of water that smells faintly like fertilizer, then reaching for the butter produced by the very company responsible. That isn't just irony, it's betrayal carved into every sip and every bite. How do you keep trusting a brand that profits while your community pays the price with poisoned soil and sick neighbors? The question gnawing at shoppers now is simple. What's next? If Land O'Lakes has already stumbled on listeria, lobbying, and environmental damage, where does the next scandal land? Antibiotic residues in milk? Resistant superbugs born from factory farm overcrowding? Another quiet recall buried in a press release no one sees until it's too late? These are not distant hypotheticals. They're the logical next steps in a pattern where profit keeps outrunning responsibility. Yet consumers are not powerless. There are alternatives that don't come wrapped in false promises. Plugras, a European-style butter brand made in the US, focuses on smaller batch processing and has earned loyalty from professional bakers who value consistency and safety. Vital Farms, known for pasture-raised and traceable products, allows shoppers to literally track their butter back to its source. And in some communities, Amish dairies sell butter directly from the farm. No lobbyists, no political deals, no recalls hidden in fine print. Just cream turned into butter the way it used to be. Choosing these isn't only about taste, it's about refusing to bankroll a system that treats loyalty like a disposable asset. So here's the question that should keep us all awake. When you peel back the foil on a Land O'Lakes stick, are you opening tradition? Or unwrapping decades of contamination risks, shady politics, and environmental wreckage? How? Many more headlines will it take before Americans stop buying the polished prom queen act and demand something real? Would you keep gambling with butter that smiles in your face while cutting corners behind your back? Or will you finally switch to brands that don't make every bite feel like Russian roulette? Number 4. Challenge butter. Challenge Butter struts across the dairy aisle with a slogan that boasts America's most trusted butter, its golden packaging shimmering like it just rode in from some wholesome Western ranch. The ads promise freshness, family, and tradition, the kind of butter you'd imagine on grandma's table at Sunday supper. But the glossy image hides something much darker. Behind that box is a string of scandals so long that Challenge starts to look less like a comfort food and more like a wolf in dairy's clothing. Chemical contamination, worker abuse, and political manipulation all baked into the brand's history. One of the most chilling blows comes from what scientists have found in the supply chain: high levels of glyphosate, the very same weed killer that sparked billion-dollar lawsuits against Monsanto for its ties to cancer. This chemical residue has been traced back to the feed of dairies supplying Challenge. Think about the betrayal here. Every time you spread their butter on warm toast, you may be brushing on an invisible layer of herbicide. For older Americans who already live with fragile health, what should have been a moment of comfort becomes a silent, daily dose of poison. And while the packaging whispers all natural, the reality is that you're eating the leftovers of industrial agriculture's dirtiest tricks. The story grows uglier when you peel back the lid on labor. Challenge's supplier farms have been tied to lawsuits and whistleblower accounts of immigrant workers being pushed to extremes: 12-hour shifts without breaks, dangerous equipment handled without protection, and supervisors pressuring workers to keep quiet instead of fixing safety problems. When you buy Challenge butter, you're not just paying for dairy. You're helping bankroll a system that squeezes human beings as harshly as it does the cows. For retirees who remember an America where fair pay and honest work mattered, this revelation stings like a betrayal of national values. And then comes politics, the invisible hand behind the butter. Challenge has long funneled lobbying money to protect industrial farming interests, pushing against stricter environmental rules and blocking reforms that would lower pesticide limits or raise safety standards. That means when you set Challenge on your table, you're also setting down the weight of policies that keep toxins legal and corporate accountability weak. It's bait and switch at its finest. Shiny, trustworthy branding on the outside, hidden corruption on the inside. Consumers aren't just buying butter, they're underwriting their own exploitation. The emotional punch comes from realizing how quietly this trap is sprung. Nobody expects their biscuits to carry a side of weed killer. Nobody thinks their butter is a pawn in Washington lobbying games. Yet millions of households shrug and keep buying Challenge because the name is familiar, the box looks trustworthy, and the price is right. But how many shrugs add up to tragedy? How many breakfasts before someone's cancer risk climbs, a child develops allergies, or a small community sees its water poisoned by the very farms supplying this butter? That's the haunting reality hiding under the golden sheen. Looking forward, the storm clouds only thicken. Climate pressures are forcing farms into heavier chemical use, raising the odds that more pesticide-laced feed slips into our milk and butter. Worker shortages will likely drive even harsher conditions on supplier farms, leading to more abuse, more shortcuts, more risk. Does anyone truly believe that Challenge, a company with a track record of brushing problems under the rug, will suddenly start putting people over profits? Or is the next scandal already in motion, waiting for us in another recall notice or courtroom headline? For those unwilling to gamble, there are still choices that give back control. Clover Sonoma, a California co-op, has built its reputation on organic standards and transparent animal welfare practices. Exactly the opposite of Challenge's industrial sprawl. Strauss Family Creamery offers organic, grass-fed, European-style butter, proof that quality can come without chemical baggage. Even Costco's Kirkland Organic Butter, backed by third-party certification, has earned praise for safety and consistency. Switching to these isn't just about flavor, it's a declaration that we refuse to bankroll a broken system. So ask yourself, when you place Challenge butter on your table, do you see a wholesome staple or do you see the hidden costs? Chemical, ethical, and political, wrapped in shiny disguise? How long will Americans keep rewarding brands that gamble with their health while cashing in on their trust? And the sharper question still, would you keep serving Challenge knowing every bite might carry not just butterfat, but the bitter aftertaste of betrayal? Number 5. Horizon Butter. Horizon Organic built its empire on a promise so comforting it felt almost maternal. The word organic stamped in bold red across its butter and dairy cartons. For decades, parents and grandparents alike reached for Horizon in the belief that they were sparing their families from chemicals, hormones, and exploitation. But pull back that label and the truth drips out like spoiled cream. Horizon has been repeatedly accused of playing fast and loose with what organic really means, turning the brand into a textbook case of betrayal. What people thought was a safe haven turned out to be another industrial mirage. The heart of the controversy lies in Horizon's sourcing. Investigations by watchdog groups like the Cornucopia Institute and the Washington Post exposed that large-scale dairies supplying Horizon weren't adhering to the same pasture grazing standards that small organic farmers must meet. Instead of cows roaming on green fields under blue skies, some herds were crammed into massive feedlots, living industrial lives more reminiscent of factory farms than idyllic farmscapes. In other words, Horizon slapped organic on butter that in practice carried many of the same industrial footprints as conventional dairy. For working-class shoppers paying a premium for Horizon, believing they were buying safety for their children and dignity for the animals, this is the kind of betrayal that makes you feel conned at the checkout aisle. The damage isn't abstract. Pasture-raised cows produce milk with higher levels of omega-3 fatty acids and fewer pesticide residues. When Horizon cuts corners, the nutritional quality of their butter drops, and the people most harmed are seniors and children, whose health relies most heavily on micronutrients. Worse, Horizon's reliance on massive industrial dairies increases the odds of contamination. Crowded barns and poor oversight create ripe conditions for pathogens like Salmonella and Listeria to spread. While not every Horizon product has been recalled, experts warn that the brand's supply chain risks mirror those of conventional giants, making a future recall more a matter of timing than possibility. Imagine buying the safe butter, only to discover it's one recall away from becoming the next headline. The ethical scandals sting just as much as the health risks. Horizon has faced lawsuits over false advertising, accused of duping consumers into paying more for organic products that didn't meet true organic standards. Some small farmers have called Horizon a wolf in organic clothing, crowding shelves with products that undercut honest family dairies that actually follow USDA rules. The irony is brutal. Shoppers who wanted to support ethical farming ended up funding the very kind of corporate shortcuts they were trying to avoid. For older Americans who came up in an era when a handshake meant honesty, Horizon's slick branding feels like a cruel joke at their expense. Looking into the future, the storm clouds only grow darker. As demand for organic butter rises, corporations like Horizon face constant temptation to dilute standards further, scaling up production while chipping away at what organic once meant. Will the next scandal be pesticide drift contaminating their so-called organic fields? Or will it be worker exploitation hidden in their supply chain? With climate pressures and rising costs, the probability is high that Horizon will cut more corners, not fewer. Unless regulators clamp down, the red organic logo may become little more than decorative ink, a symbol of everything fake in the American grocery system. But shoppers are not helpless. For those who want butter that actually honors the organic promise, Sorano if you are Brushing, Kelowna Supernatural offers butter from small Amish and Mennonite farms in Iowa, where cows graze real pastures and the supply chain is transparent. Clover Sonoma organic butter has also been praised for integrity, sourcing from smaller farms committed to animal welfare and honest labeling. Even smaller regional brands like Maple Hill Creamery stick to grass-fed practices that Horizon often skirts around. Choosing these options isn't just about avoiding betrayal, it's about putting your dollars where your trust should be, with people who don't treat organic as a marketing gimmick. So ask yourself this: when you pay extra for Horizon, are you really buying better health? Or just buying into a brand's marketing story? How many more exposies will it take before consumers admit that organic doesn't always mean safe? And most painfully, if the label you trusted to protect your family turns out to be hollow, where else in the supermarket are you being fooled without realizing it? Number 6. Kerrygold. For years, Kerrygold gleamed like the crown jewel of the butter aisle, its gold foil promising purity, grass-fed cows, and Irish charm. Americans gladly paid double, convinced they were buying safety and quality, but the halo has slipped. Wisconsin banned it for nearly 2 years over grade labeling laws, exposing just how fragile its compliance with US rules really was. If one state could block it, what does that say about oversight everywhere else? Then came lawsuits accusing Kerrygold of exaggerating its grass-fed claim. Investigations showed Irish cows often eat grain in winter. For shoppers scraping together dollars for what they thought was 100% pasture-raised, that revelation felt like a scam. Paying for Sinatra, but getting karaoke. Add to that contamination whispers abroad. In 2020, German authorities flagged Kerrygold for possible mineral oil traces from packaging linked to cancer. When butter crosses oceans, every mile adds another risk of failure. And the green pastures? More like a green illusion. Shipping tons of perishable butter across the Atlantic racks up a massive carbon footprint. Older and low-income Americans, already squeezed by higher grocery bills, pay the price in polluted air and rising costs. Behind the glittering foil is a climate debt disguised as luxury. The future? Kerrygold plans to expand, meaning more cows, more grain, and more pressure on oversight. That looks less like purity and more like another scandal waiting. Why assume the next recall won't be worse? Safer choices exist. Vital Farms offers traceable, pasture-raised U.S. butter. Kelowna Supernatural partners with small farms. And Minerva Dairy delivers European-style richness without transatlantic risks. The sharp question remains, is Kerrygold truly golden or just another mirage wrapped in shiny foil? When even butter betrays our trust what food is truly safe. Join us, subscribe now, and demand honesty in every bite.
Thanks a lot for sticking with us to the very end. If you found this video useful, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you won't miss any daily uploads. And now, go ahead and explore some of our top recommended videos popping up on your screen. Goodbye, and see you in the next one.